It is worth noting that the Canadian Cattle Association and the Canadian Pork Council have both indicated opposition to the UK's accession to the CPTPP due to that country's non-tariff barriers for Canadian pork and beef producers. The UK is Canada's third largest trading partner and ally, and with this new relationship, I can see the opportunity for increased trade. However, there have been missed opportunities, not only with pork and beef. Mr. Speaker, I'll finish after.
Perfect. Yes, I was going to mention that. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Spadina Harbourfront.
Mr. Speaker, 25 years ago, for International Women's Day, 12 students from McGill University walked up to Parliament to shadow and learn from women parliamentarians. Yesterday, we welcomed 85 students from McGill, Toronto Metropolitan University, and the University of Ottawa to this chamber to shadow women parliamentarians across party lines. Women in House has now welcomed more than 5,000 young women to Parliament who have moved on to careers in public service, advocacy, and yes, even into politics. Women have long led efforts to advance policies that address social and economic challenges. A powerful example of this is our government's $10 a day childcare, which is reshaping how we think about economic resilience and growth. Despite this incredible progress, Canada still ranks 73rd in the world for women's political representation. Our work to continuing opening doors for women must go on. Canada is better when more young women can see themselves not only in these halls, but at every table where decisions are made. Happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
The honourable member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have a bad habit of announcing big programs for big money that don't actually work. In South Kitchener, Mohammed Kashvani invested $1.6 million of his own savings and loans to build Angus Valley Montessori, a beautiful childcare centre that can serve 100 children. Parents are calling every day. More than 450 families are on the wait list. Yet, those spaces are almost all sitting empty. Why? Because their subsidy system is broken. The federal government takes money from taxpayers in Kitchener, brings it up to Ottawa, sends some of that to the province sends some of that to the municipality, and at the end of that chain, 450 tax-paying families are not seeing a dime of what they put into the system. The Liberals want to take credit for a universal childcare system, but they never take responsibility when 14,000 families in Waterloo Region cannot find proper childcare. Mr. Speaker, I call on the Liberals to fix their broken childcare system so that Mr. Kashvani and his wife can live their dream of providing high-quality childcare to my friends and neighbours in Kitchener. Conservatives will restore childcare.
The honourable member for Hamilton West Ancaster.
I'm honoured to rise as the Member of Parliament for Hamilton West Ancaster Dundas. In less than a year, our government is delivering for Canadians. We've cut income taxes, we're delivered affordable childcare and affordability tax credits, we're strengthening Buy Canadian procurement to support Canadian workers and Canadian industry, and we're investing in the infrastructure that Canada relies on. Ports, transit, Hamilton's LRT project, roads and bridges, sports facilities, and recreation centres. We are building more housing, protecting jobs in the steel and auto sectors, and we're building ships and life science sectors in Hamilton, strengthening healthcare, and reducing our reliance on the United States by expanding new markets for Canadian businesses. We're creating new jobs and opportunities across the country, including here in Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas. Canadians elected a government that is strong, stable, and focused on building a more prosperous future for our country, and I'm proud to share some of the great work that we've achieved so far. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Lakeland.
The Liberals love to censor and control Canadians. Their Bill C-18 blocks Canadians from news on social media. C-11 controls what Canadians see and say online. Their extra, quote, online harms bill, yet the laws to combat it exist but aren't enforced. Their energy censorship stops Canadian businesses from telling the truth about innovation and the environment. And who can forget the unconstitutional Emergencies Act? These same Liberals are at it again with Bill C-9 that will strip the long-held religious defence from Canada's hate speech laws, criminalise passages from sacred texts like the Bible, Torah, and Quran, with Canadians already in danger as global conflicts plague our streets. The Liberals are clear. Religious texts and believers should be prosecuted. True to form, the Liberals shut down debate to censor MPs and ignore countless Canadians who urge us to reject C9. Conservatives will always defend free religion, assembly, and expression because a free, democratic country does not police faith or prosecute Scripture.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for La Salle-et-Marne-Verdun. Mr. Speaker, on February 23rd, my riding of La Salle-et-Marne-Verdun was struck by a devastating event. The former St. Paul Church was ravaged by a major fire, forcing the evacuation of nearly 100 seniors from their homes next door in the middle of the night. Thanks to the courage and professionalism of the Montreal Fire Department and the rapid response of the Canadian Red Cross, no lives were lost.
However, a vital community lifeline lost everything. La main qui partage, qui nourrit.
An organization that feeds the most vulnerable and offers hope and dignity to over 200 families saw its equipment go up in flames. Our community came together.
Volunteers showed up, and our members of parliament from across Montreal answered the call to offer concrete support to help the organization replace its equipment. I cannot thank my colleagues enough. La main qui partage exists.
This organization exists to make sure that nobody is left behind. And in this difficult time, our community has shown that it can come together in solidarity.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
Bill C9 expands the definition of hate in the criminal code while also removing long-standing religious defense. This change is significant and raises serious concerns for Canadians of faith who could be vulnerable to criminal prosecution simply for quoting passages from their own sacred texts. If the government can decide that parts of religious books are hateful and make it a crime to talk about them without clear protections in law, it takes us down an extremely dangerous path. This matters because religious freedom is not a privilege granted by a government, but rather it is a right guaranteed by Canada's Constitution. It is a cornerstone of our free and democratic society. Tens of thousands of Canadians have exercised their voice, have written and have called to members of Parliament. And they have asked for Bill C9 to be scrapped. And as members of Parliament who are duly elected, we have a duty of care, and that is to listen to the voices of those constituents. All sincerely held beliefs must be protected, and Bill C9 must be withdrawn.
The Honourable Member for Fredericton, Oromocto.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate the University of New Brunswick's women's basketball team on their historic season. For the first time in nearly 50 years, the Reds made it to the U Sports Women's Basketball National Championship.
Despite fierce competition in the final, this memorable achievement is the result of determination, discipline, and unwavering team spirit.
Gold, they have inspired a generation of young players, including my very own 13-year-old daughter. She was literally jumping around the living room. She was so excited by the accomplishment. I ask all members of this House to join me in congratulating the UNB Reds women's basketball team on this remarkable milestone.
Bravo.
Thank you. Merci.
The Honourable Member for Terra Nova, the Peninsulas.
Mr. Speaker, the PC government of Newfoundland and Labrador was finally able to do what Liberal governments couldn't do. Despite years of Liberal anti-oil policies, they finally signed the deal to Bay de Nord. This will bring $6 billion of royalty revenue to the province. 95% of its subsea work was guaranteed for the province. It is estimated at 31 million man-hours for its lifetime. To sweeten the pot, Equinor and BP agreed to build a floating dry dock to equip our province for long-term employment into shipbuilding opportunities. This deal is a good deal by Premier Wakeham, and I will fight to make it even greater. Currently, the contracts to build the FPSOs are on tender, and we should make sure that they are built in Newfoundland and Labrador. Will this government reinstate the oil and gas investments back into the Atlantic Investment Tax Credit to lower taxes, to give local companies a fighting chance?
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, The Drummondville Symphony Orchestra has just seen a major success. It's won a major prize in the category Regional Impact for 2025. And we have to say, Drummondville continues to succeed at the national and international scale. The Symphony Orchestra has won 5 major prizes in less than 10 years. It's the most successful regional orchestra in Quebec, Mr. Speaker. This symphony orchestra continues to do incredible work with incredible upcoming concerts. They sound great, and they have an impact across our city and across Quebec. It's heartwarming, so bravo to the maestro, to the musicians. We're very proud of your talent.
The honourable member for Scarborough-Woburn.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honour the life of Donald Rickard, a distinguished Canadian whose contributions to law, education, and public service left a lasting impact on our country. Don Rickard studied at Queen's Oxford Osgoode Hall, practiced law, and served as a faculty member and administrator at York University. He later served as president of the William H. Donner Foundation and Donner Canadian Foundation, participated in charitable and community work across Canada, and as a member of the MacDonald Commission, he helped strengthen accountability in matters of national security. Beyond his formal achievement, Don was known for his generosity, intellectual curiosity, and deep commitment to his students. A gifted storyteller and a warm presence, he built connections across generations and disciplines. On behalf of the House, I extend my sincere condolences to his wife, Julie, his son, Christopher, and all those whose lives were enriched by his kindness and wisdom.
The honourable member for Calgary-Signal Hill.
Yesterday, the Minister of Natural Resources promised that Canada would, quote, do its part, unquote, to bring down oil prices. And so the question follows, what exactly are we going to do? Today is the day that we're smacked in the face with the outcome of more than 10 years of Liberal, keep it in the ground, law and policy respecting our petroleum industry. The fact is that the Liberal government has starved our energy industry of essential strategic infrastructure. Bill C-69 is an unworkable approval permit law. The Liberals have blocked pipelines and banned oil tanker shipping. Fortunately, my private member's bill will at least repeal the West Coast oil tanker ban. When it comes to strategic reserves, thankfully Pierre Poilievre has proposed the Emergency Energy Supply Plan that will allow us to assist our friends abroad in times of crisis and blunt energy shocks that further drive up the cost of living and hurt Canadians. I call on the Liberal government to adopt our plan.
I just want to remind the member that he cannot name a member of this House by their proper name. The honourable member for South Surrey, White Rock.
Mr. Speaker, last Sunday I was joined by the Surrey Police and Fire Department to deliver a speech and cheer on everyone at the Polar Plunge for Special Olympics BC. The Polar Plunge is about the belief that everyone deserves a place to belong. This year marks the 10th anniversary of the Polar Plunge for Special Olympics BC, which has raised more than $2 million to support athletes. In August, Alberta hosts the Special Olympics Canada Summer Games. As a father of a child with a disability, I have seen firsthand how sports build confidence, friendships, and joy. It opens doors for athletes, families, and entire communities. Through Special Olympics, people are not defined by their challenges, but by their courage, their determination, and their incredible abilities. To those who took the plunge this year, remember, you didn't just brave the cold, you helped to create a more inclusive world where every athlete is celebrated. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Newmarket, Aurora.
There have always been conflicts abroad, but we have never seen them spill onto our streets the way that it has under this Liberal government. Last week, 3 synagogues were shot at in the GTA, and now an Iranian dissident has gone missing, which is being investigated as a homicide. So today we're calling on the Liberals to table a plan within 1 week to do the following: enforce deportation orders for regime officials and close the loopholes that allow them to stay here in Canada, coordinate Canada's Iranian sanctions to ensure effective compliance, end the regime's money laundering efforts here in Canada, evaluate Canada's terrorism threat level, identify any gaps in Canada's national security legislation, and finally complete Canada's Foreign Influence Registry. The Liberals have failed to provide a plan to combat the regime in Tehran and their predations on Canada. So we have done the work for them because Conservatives believe that Canadians deserve to feel safe here at home.
The Honourable Member for Ottawa-Vanier-Gloucester. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's with a great honour that I rise today in the House to mark International Women's Day, which took place on March 8th. On Saturday, in my riding, we had the honour of celebrating and recognizing for a 4th consecutive year 19 exceptional women from Ottawa-Vanier-Gloucester who are actively contributing to our community. Through their commitment, their leadership, and their dedication, they strengthen our communities and inspire all of us continue to make concrete steps forward.
So the importance of recognizing their achievements and continuing our efforts to promote gender equality and equity. On March 8th, we honored the women who built, the women who resisted, the women who innovated, the women who make a difference in their community, and those who, every day in their personal and professional lives, create a more humane, more united, and more courageous world. Quand les femmes avancent.
When women move forward, everyone moves forward, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Provencher.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government treats inflation like it's a natural disaster, something they can't control, when in reality, it's a policy that they've authored. They aren't just watching prices rise, they're actively driving the spike with a tax and spend agenda that ignores the reality of the Canadian kitchen table. The industrial carbon tax is a prime example. It's not just another number on a ledger, it's an extra 7 cents a litre today, climbing to 17. These taxes and red tape hit our farmers, our truckers, our food processors like a man-made storm. Canadians see the carnage at every stage, from the fuel needed to plant the seed to the final total at the grocery checkout. This affordability crisis was made right here in Ottawa by the members on the other side of this House. Right. They keep pointing south of the border to shift the blame, but they cannot hide the math. Their taxes are making life more expensive. It's time to stop the excuses and put Canadians first. It's time to cut the taxes that fuel inflation. It's time to make decisions that favour our families. And finally, Mr. Speaker, it's time to bring back hope for a better Canada.
The Honourable Member for Richmond East Steveston.
Mr. Speaker, the Kidney Foundation of Canada is on the Hill this week. March 12th is World Kidney Day, and the Foundation is launching its National Strategic Framework for Chronic Kidney Disease, Canada's first unified roadmap to move kidney care from reactive and fragmented to proactive, coordinated, and resilient. As someone born with a solitary kidney who has undergone dialysis and received a transplant, I know the importance of early detection, timely treatment, and strong medical teams. I am grateful to all the medical professionals and organizations like Canadian Blood Services that offer hope to patients nationwide. Thanks to the dedicated medical and transplant team at Vancouver General Hospital, I am here today. I thank the Kidney Foundation for its leadership and commitment to a healthier future.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Yesterday, the Minister of Natural Resources made the absurd promise that Canada would, quote, do its part to help stabilize global oil markets. But Canada can't do its part because after a decade liberal energy policies, we don't have a strategic oil reserve. When allies need energy and markets need stability, Canada has nothing to offer but the minister's promises. Conservatives have proposed a strategic reserve to fuel our allies abroad and give Canada real leverage, especially at times like these. So will the Liberals adopt our plan so that Canada can be stronger at home and more reliable abroad?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Speaker, let me explain to the member opposite the way the IEA works. Net importers have strategic oil reserves. Net exporters do not. That is how it works, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Let me explain something back. Just because you don't have to do something, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't, especially when you lead your allies to believe that you will. We have a name for that. But the Liberals cannot paper over a 10-year record of shutting down the oil and gas sector, leaving our country weaker, more dependent, and unable to step up when it matters. They can say the words, they can sign the MOUs, but we all know that the Minister's new project office hasn't approved a single new project. So will the government finally scrap the anti-pipeline law, repeal the emissions cap, lift the tanker ban, approve real projects so we can get Canadians to work and be there for our allies?
The Honourable Minister.
Apparently, Mr. Speaker, they don't agree with the Premier of Alberta that now is the time to build. This new Liberal government signed it and will deliver against the promise of the Canada MOU. We will build strong with Indigenous peoples. That's why Canadians elected the new Prime Minister, because the new Prime Minister knows how to work with the premiers, knows how to work with Indigenous peoples to build things. Unfortunately, the leader of the opposition does not. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent Akiawanrak. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Natural Resources Minister promised that Canada was going to do its share to free up oil reserves to stabilize the market. That's a good idea, Mr. Speaker, but the only problem is we don't have a strategic oil reserve. Why? Because for 10 years, these people across the way from me dealt with Canadian oil in a certain way. We, on our side, propose a stockpile for oil reserves and critical minerals. Will the Prime Minister say yes to building wealth and this incredibly important leverage in an uncertain world? Mr. Speaker, with respect to creating an energy superpower, that's what we're doing. The minister just explained that exporting countries generally do not have reserves, but importing countries do. Canada will also be a renewable energy superpower, whether we're talking about selling uranium, supporting renewable energy and technology throughout this country. Canada is an energetic superpower, conventional and renewable, and will remain that way. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent Akiawanrak. The Minister of National Resources has only been here for a year, but this minister has been here for 10 years. Over those 10 years, him and his colleagues had contempt for Canada Energy, and today all Canadians are paying the price for that. Also, Mr. Speaker, there is a food inflation problem here. Canada is a great country in the G7, but has the worst food inflation, 7.3%. Result, Mr. Speaker, families of Saint-Georges-de-Beauce go grocery shopping, and 15 kilometers away, it costs them less expensive on the other side of the border. Why do Canadians have to pay more for their groceries? Mr. Speaker, my colleague, who has also been here for 10 years, also has a record. He systematically voted against any support that was needed to support Canadians against price increases, voted against dental care, nutrition in schools, the Canada Child Benefit. This member systematically voted against all of this, Mr. Speaker. Not one support for one Canadian that he's approved. When will they start to do what's right?
For Grand Prairie.
Mr. Speaker, we can't control what's happening abroad, but we can fix things here at home. The majority of Canadians now report that they're worse off today than when this Prime Minister took office. And, Mr. Speaker, they're right. Under his leadership, Canada now has the worst food price inflation and the only shrinking economy in the G7. This Liberal Prime Minister was warned that imposing his industrial carbon tax and adding a fuel standard tax that's now at 7 cents, that he's rising to 17 cents a litre, would drive up prices, but he did it anyway, Mr. Speaker. Canadians Canadians can't afford this. When will this Prime Minister remove his inflationary taxes so Canadians can afford to eat?
Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Thanks for taking up. Mr. Speaker, well, that leader, the Conservative leader, was in Europe trying to reboot his tarnished image, meeting with leaders who wondered why he was even there. Do you know where our Prime Minister was? He was in the Indo-Pacific signing trade deals. Wow. Japan, Australia, India. How about $2.6 billion on uranium from Saskatchewan? Did those Saskatchewan members even comment on that? Premier Scott Moe certainly supported it. On this side of the House, we're going to continue to build our economy. That side is full of rhetoric and obstruction. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Grand Prairie.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if you believe that answer, I've got some oceanfront property I'll sell you in Alberta. Because, Mr. Speaker, everyone knows that when the government charges higher fuel and carbon taxes on fertilizer, fuel, and equipment for farmers, food processors, and truckers, it drives up the cost of food. And it's going to get worse as long as these Liberals keep on hiking these taxes. Canada now has the highest food price inflation and the worst shrinking economy in the G7, and it's gotten worse since this Prime Minister took office. We can't control what's happening abroad, but we can fix things here at home. Why won't these Liberals reverse their taxes so Canadians can afford to eat?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, I'm standing up for my daily reminder that studies show that the industrial carbon price adds zero to the cost of food. So if they want to speak about taxes, though, I can point out that on this side of the House, what did we do? We cut them. If they want to talk about imaginary taxes, go ahead. But we're going to make sure that we support Canadians with real measures.
L'honorable député de Saint-Jean.
The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Ali al-Salem military base was targeted by Iranian missiles on March 1st. This military complex is home to Camp Canada, an operational base for the Canadian Armed Forces. So on March 1st, Canadian military personnel were targeted by Iran. The government, the Minister of Defence, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and of course the Prime Minister were aware of this attack against Canadian Armed Forces personnel in Kuwait. Why did the government not inform parliamentarians nor the public about this attack? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada was not consulted, did not participate, and will not participate in offensive strikes against Iran. All Canadian Armed Forces members in the region are well, safe and sound, and have been located. For reasons of operational security, we cannot provide any further details. But I would like to thank the Canadian Armed Forces for their hard work on a daily basis for our country. Thank you. The honourable member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, on Monday, March 9th, the government proposed a take-note debate on the conflict in the Middle East in response to requests from the Bloc Québécois and the Conservative Party. It had been 8 days since the Ali al-Salem military base had been attacked by Iranian missiles. 8 days, and they did not see fit to mention this to parliamentarians. It was La Presse, the newspaper, that made this information public. We wouldn't know about it today if it were up to the Liberals. Are there other attacks like this that the government is trying to hide from us, and why should we trust them? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, as I stated, all Canadian Armed Forces members in the region are safe and sound and were located. As we continue to say, Canada reaffirms that international law applies, binds all actors, including the United States and Israel. They must respect international rules. And I again want to reissue this thank you to the Canadian Armed Forces for their constant effort on behalf of our country. The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot-Acton. At the beginning of the conflict, the Prime Minister said he supported the United States and Israel. Since then, he has been revising his position on a daily basis. The lives of Canadian Armed Forces soldiers in Kuwait were threatened by Iranian missile strikes. The Prime Minister knew this. The Minister of Defence knew this. Perhaps the entire cabinet knew this. But the members of Parliament didn't know, nor did the public. Why? Was it because the Camp Canada military base in Kuwait was targeted by missile strikes that the Prime Minister supported the American offensive. The Honourable Minister, I would like to confirm that all Canadian Armed Forces members in the region are safe, that they have all been accounted for. For operational safety reasons, we cannot provide any further detail to that effect. I would like to be clear, Canada was not consulted, did not participate, and has no intention to participate in offensive strikes against Iran. Period.
The honourable member for Lethbridge.
The Liberals blame the world for the fact that families are struggling more than ever to make ends meet. But it's actually this government's policies here at home that are driving up the cost of food. Canada has the highest food inflation rate out of the G7, and a big factor in this is the hidden carbon tax, also known as the Clean Fuel Standard. It's making life more expensive because it's driving up the cost of fuel for trucks and farmers and fishermen. And so when will the Liberals take responsibility for their own actions here at home and take off these taxes that are punitive for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker, it seems like the members opposite from the Conservative Party have a big interest in the clean fuel standards. So let me talk to them and to their constituents about the opportunities that are created by this. Because canola farmers in Alberta will actually see an increase in the value of their product. They will actually see an increase in their farm revenue. We actually see the Imperial Diesel renewable diesel facility that's going to use up or require 50% of the canola that's produced in Alberta. This is an opportunity for farmers in her riding and all of the rest of her caucus members. We stand up for Alberta.
The honourable member for Lethbridge.
Touch with the people in Western Canada, and I would dare say all Canadians would like them to believe that there's a benefit to this tax, that there's a benefit to driving up the cost of groceries and forcing seniors have to choose between groceries and their medication, or having families choose between are they going to give their daughter formula or are they going to cut back on the essential amount. These are the types of tough decisions that our Canadians are making. And the minister says that this is an opportunity for them. An opportunity. When will this government listen to Canadians, see Canadians for what they're saying and the challenges that they're facing, and do something about it?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, judging from recent opinion polling, it is not us who is out of touch with the people of Alberta, Mr. Speaker. It is, in fact, this Liberal government that is delivering on the promise of a memorandum of understanding with the province of Alberta. It is this government that is making markets and creating revenues and increasing the incomes of canola farmers across Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Mr. Speaker. The question is for the opposition, when will they get behind this Western Canadian agenda?
The honourable member for Newtecumseh-Gwillimbury.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians watching know this government always has an excuse ready. But they can't keep passing the buck when we have the highest food inflation and the worst economic growth in the G7. Backward Liberal policies imposed domestically, like the industrial carbon tax and the fuel standard tax, are harming our economy and making life more expensive for Canadians. Enough excuses. Will the Liberals scrap these self-inflicted taxes they are forcing on Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, enough excuses, enough rhetoric from that side of the House. This is a government that is supporting Canadians right across the country. We have delivered on the groceries benefit, which in my riding is going to help over 30,000 of my constituents. I expect it's similar in that member's riding as well, Mr. Speaker. That benefit is going to help deliver close to $1,900 this year for a family of 4. It's the kind of part of our plan that is making an actual difference in the lives of Canadians. So when are these Conservatives going to get on board and back us up?
The honourable member for Newtecumseh-Gwillimbury.
Well, Mr. Speaker, how can Canada stand on its own 2 feet in the world if the Liberals keep cutting our legs out from under us? Amid global instability, the government should be doing everything it can to make life more affordable right here at home. But Liberal taxes are leaving Canadians more exposed to global shocks, conflicts, and decisions by foreign governments. When will the Liberals stop making excuses and scrap these taxes?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Oh, no, sorry, the Honourable L'Honourable.
I know the member is a man of good spirit and good heart. Let me help him with his talking points, Mr. Speaker. Canada has the second fastest growth in the G7, Mr. Speaker. The lowest net to deficit, Mr. Speaker. We have one of the lowest deficit to GDP, Mr. Speaker. He should rejoice about the place of Canada in the world, Mr. Speaker. We have the most educated workforce. We have strong industry. We have critical minerals. We have energy. We have trade agreement. We have everything, Mr. Speaker, to lead in the world of the 21st century. We believe in Canada in this.
The Honourable Member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals like to blame everyone else for rising food prices, but it's their own policies here at home that are driving them up. Canada now has the highest food inflation in the G7. Instead of helping, Liberals are now adding new fuel costs, which will rise from 7 to 17 cents a litre. For every new tax, that increases planting, harvesting, and transporting food. Farmers cannot absorb it, and consumers cannot afford it. Please, Mr. Prime Minister, flip-flop again, scrap these costly policies, and finally show some mercy to the hard-working Canadian families and the farmers who feed them.
Before the member starts, I just want to remember, the member for Kelowna, just a reminder that we address the chair. We're not addressing any member of this House directly, and I'll just remind the member of that too. So the Honourable Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. More good news, as my colleague likes to say. The headlines in the newspapers in Saskatchewan grain terminal seeing increase in canola sales, Mr. Speaker. Saskatchewan's optimistic on oil and gas. Saskatchewan is building, Mr. Speaker. Why is Saskatchewan building? Because Canada works. That was a message we heard from the Conservative opposition for the last 10 years. I'm here to say, Saskatchewan, we love you, and everything that we do it for you.
The Honourable Member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That answer shows just how out of touch these Liberals are. That member represents a riding from Saskatchewan, which is the breadbasket of Canada and the world. Yet there has been 27 confirmed cases of scurvy in that member's riding. These aren't people who are coming over in wooden ships across the Atlantic in the 1600s. Unfortunately, this is just another day in Liberal Canada. When will this government be morally or ethically serious and stop these crazy policies that are driving up food inflation in Canada?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Rural Development.
Mr. Speaker, I've been trying to speak with our Premier, Scott Moe, in Saskatchewan, but I can't get a hold of him. He's too busy signing deal after deal with their Prime Minister, which means benefits after benefits after benefits for the Saskatchewan people. And any day of the week, Mr. Speaker, I will compare our Prime Minister and our government's ability, credibility, and capability versus a phantom plan designed by an anonymous economist and led by someone that never worked in the private sector before, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the rising cost of living is hitting constituents, Quebecers and Canadians hard.
On continue à parler du dernier échange.
This is still the last exchange.
Oui, on va se calmer. L'honorable.
Yes.
Oh. Oui, peut-être. On va...
Perhaps we might have to extend question period.
L'honorable.
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. Mr. Speaker, the rising cost of living is hitting my constituents, Quebecers and Canadians hard. We have the worst food inflation in the G7. Despite this, the Liberals are determined to make life even more difficult by increasing the fuel tax, which is already rising from 7 to 17 cents per litre. This leads to higher prices for our farmers. When will the government put an end, once and for all, to these taxes that are a burden on Canadian families? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. With all the respect I have for my colleagues, I'm sad to hear him rise here in the House, whereas when he had all these opportunities to defend his constituents, to fight for affordability, the cost of living, their buying power, he always failed to sign on. The benefit, the groceries benefit, he didn't sign on for that. The increase in the child benefit, a tax cut for the middle class, Mr. Speaker, and not just that. The Saguenay work that's been done that's good for his economy and the economy in Quebec. The honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue, Mr. Speaker, yesterday, Public Accounts Committee unanimously voted. That includes my Liberal colleagues, a motion calling for an inquiry on the failures of Phoenix, ArriveCam, and Curem. The National Assembly of Quebec also unanimously called for an inquiry. What happens at the federal level is taxpayer money that ends up going into these useless IT systems. Billions of dollars could have been better invested elsewhere. When will there be an independent public inquiry?
Mr. Speaker, let me be perfectly clear with that member. The government tabled a response at the Public Accounts Committee in January. There was over 50 pages of documentation on the progress of the Benefit Delivery Modernization Program that are publicly available and can be found online. So what he has asked for has already been conducted. But Mr. Speaker, just this morning, he also participated in a technical briefing with the department where he learned that the benefits system is providing services to over 7 million Canadians, is on track, and so far the expenditure is under budget.
The honourable member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister was telling us that we hadn't taken part in a briefing session on Curem. Well, that briefing session was actually happening today and we attended. Conclusion, Curem is still causing problems. Tens of thousands of seniors are still today without their old age security benefits. Bills keep coming in. The problems caused by Curem remain the same, and thousands of people are still experiencing worry and anxiety. Rather than holding briefing sessions to defend their flawed system, what are the Liberals waiting for to set up an independent public inquiry? The Honourable Minister.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to commend members at the Bloc who finally rose to the occasion and took this technical briefing that will clarify things for them with respect to Curem. The direct costs of the program are less than anticipated, yes, but 7.7 million Canadians receive OAS through and via Curem. What the Bloc Québécois is proposing is absolutely unacceptable. That would mean millions of seniors would be dependent on an archaic, obsolete system that was vulnerable and was endangering their financial health and safety throughout the country.
Honourable member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
Mr. Speaker, it's a new day, so it means there's another CMHC housing report that's warning that housing starts are falling because projects simply no longer work financially. Government taxes, fees, and regulations now account for up to half of the cost of a new home. Mr. Speaker, when government takes that much, fewer homes get built. So, will the government This Liberal government, please, just listen to the Conservatives, listen to experts, and take the immediate step to improve the economics of housing and eliminate the GST on all new homes.
The Honourable Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we had some good news in that CMHC report, which shows that average rents across the country are coming down. We're making progress. We're also seeing the price of housing come down as well, and mortgage rates are also down. So we're seeing trends in the right direction that achieve affordability, which everyone in this House seems to want to deliver on. We can deliver even more by passing the Build Canada Homes Act in this House, get $13 billion to set up Canada's affordable housing agency permanently and deliver more for Canadians. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Parry Sound Muskoka.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's not surprising the minister read only a part of that report, because the report actually talks about the housing starts are falling. They're dropping dramatically. And the reason they're dropping is because the cost of government is just too high and housing construction is too expensive. So my question is simple. Instead of creating a fourth, count them 4, federal housing bureaucracy with this new Build Canada Homes, why won't the government deal with the real barriers to home building? Taxes, fees, and approvals, so builders can get building the homes that Canadians can afford.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to the member opposite for pointing out, is we are cutting taxes on first-time home buyers up to $50,000 for young Canadians to be able to buy their first home. We are reducing the amount of red tape across the country. The Housing Affordability Accelerator Fund is delivering for 241 cities across the country. We're seeing permitting and approvals move faster. We're delivering infrastructure investments to bring down development charges so the fees for home building go down. We're delivering on all these points. We need to take it to the next level with the members opposite.
The Honourable Member for York Durham.
The CMHC spring housing report is out, Mr. Speaker, and the headlines are concerning. Here it is. Condo sales have collapsed, inventory of all types of housing has surged, and financial conditions have worsened for homebuyers. But here's the most concerning thing about that report. It says that Canadians are delaying starting families because of housing unaffordability, delaying marriage, delaying children, the very foundations of our society, because they can't afford a home. We've offered one positive solution: remove the GST on new homes for all Canadians. Will the minister commit to doing that today?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, it's no surprise that Canadians are challenged with buying homes right now when there's a war in the Middle East. There's no surprise, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. Okay. The member may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the first 100 days of Build Canada Homes, we've secured agreements with Nova Scotia, with BC, with Nunavut. We're delivering thousands. We're up to 9,000 homes that are being delivered through Build Canada Homes for Canadians. And we're just getting started, Mr. Speaker. If we pass the Build Canada Homes Act in this House in the days ahead, we can supercharge the construction of affordable housing, and that's what Canadians need.
The Honourable Member for York Durham.
Well, Mr. Speaker, an excuse for every problem, but this is a new one. The war in Iran is the cause of our housing crisis. Wow. I mean, I don't know how you square that circle, Mr. Speaker. And he boasts about 9,000 new homes. He promised 500,000 new homes. That's not even 2% of his target. And guess what? CMHC says only 259,000 were built last year. Only half of the target again. So at the rate that the minister complacently brags about, we'll never hit the target. So will he take our idea and remove GST on all new homes for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The good news is that we had a very strong year last year for housing starts across Canada, one of the best in our history. Almost 260,000 homes were started. We need to keep that continuing. Sales are challenged right now. The economy is challenged. This side of the House is focused on delivering for Canada on affordability, boosting our economy, creating jobs, cutting the costs and the challenges that Canadians have. And that starts first and foremost with our housing. So we're going to deliver that with Build Canada Homes. I invite the members opposite to support the Act moving forward. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Richmond North Nebraska. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We all agree that Canada needs to build more housing. But the Liberal solution is to build more bureaucracy. the only thing the Liberals know how to build is more bureaucracy. This is the fourth Liberal housing bureaucracy, Build Canada Homes. It's going to cost Canadians $13 billion, but will only build 5,000 new homes per year, which is 1% of the country's needs. When will this government finally get rid of GST on all new homes rather than build even more bureaucracy? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am very pleased that the colleague across the way is asking this question, because it enables me to underscore that Quebec is the first province to have made an agreement under Build Canada Homes with my colleague, which will lead to the construction of thousands of new homes across the country and in Quebec. And I would invite my colleague to follow this closely, because we will build with speed and ambition.
Member for Oakville West.
Good news, Mr. Speaker. Earlier today, the Minister of Public Safety tabled an act respecting lawful access with the underlying objective of giving law enforcement agencies the modern tools they need to combat organized crime, as well as further capacity to act swiftly to prevent criminal activities such as extortion. Could the Minister of Public Safety elaborate on the critical importance of this bill and how the passage of this legislation contributes to the safety and security of all Canadians from coast to coast to coast?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, it is indeed good news, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleague from Oakville West for her hard work. Mr. Speaker, we've been clear that lawful access measures are necessary to give law enforcement the tools they need to protect Canadians. Canada is the only Five Eyes G7 country not to have a lawful access measure in place. It's time that Canadian law enforcement have Canadian solutions to go after criminals. With the new measures proposed in Bill C-22, law enforcement will have the tools they've been asking for to combat childhood sexual exploitation, extortion, human trafficking, and money laundering, Mr. Speaker. I want to ask
the Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
For months, we have said that the punishing auto tariffs that have been put on our auto industry were devastating, and they would devastate the industry. 10,000 jobs lost, these Liberals did nothing. 3 plants closed, these Liberals did nothing. $2.5 billion worth of tariffs have been charged to our auto manufacturers, and now the roosters have come home to roost. StatsCan reports that sales of vehicles and light-duty vehicles are down 32%, exports down 32%, parts down 21%. These are the worst export numbers since COVID. When will these Liberals realize they are failing our auto workers?
Honorable Ministre de l'Industrie.
Mr. Speaker, when my colleague and the Conservative talk about the auto sector, I don't know why they're scared about talking about the auto tariffs. I don't know why they're not condemning the trade war against us. And at the same time, I don't know why they're not supporting what another Conservative is saying, Premier Ford, which is supporting a new auto strategy. Notwithstanding all the headwinds against our auto workers, we've been there fighting for them, supporting them, and creating new jobs. I was in Windsor with Premier Ford last week. We just created 3,000 new jobs.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
As usual, this minister's answer to questions about the auto sector are some combination of "we're not doing enough" and fake news. Look at the results. The results of this are clear. The exports to the United States are down 32% for light-duty and passenger vehicles. 32%. This is billions of dollars. And this is a direct result of the tariffs they said they would have removed by Canada Day of 2025. It's approaching Canada Day of 2026. They failed to get the tariffs off, which they said they would do. The auto industry has been devastated. Why don't they admit their failures and apologize to auto workers and the auto sector?
Just a second. I would just like to ask the Honourable Member for Hamilton West Ancaster Dundas to pipe down a bit, or a lot actually. The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when we look at the auto workers in the eyes, we know that they can trust us. Why? Because we have a plan, notwithstanding all the headwinds against our auto workers, against the auto workers of the entire world. And this morning, I was in conversation with the new CEO of Audi. We're working working on attracting new investments to Canada. We will use our defense procurement to attract new investment in our auto sector. We will use every single levers of this government to make sure that we can defend their jobs. And at the end of the day, these are not fake news. These are real.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's auto exports have fallen to their lowest levels in years, and more than 5,000 auto workers have already lost their jobs as shifts are cancelled and production lines like the third line in Oshawa are shut down.
Shameful.
In communities like mine, auto workers and their families know exactly what that means. When the auto industry suffers, entire communities feel it. Will the Liberals finally put Canadian auto workers first? Or will they keep using Canadian tax dollars to subsidize foreign-made vehicles while our jobs disappear?
L'honorable ministre de l'Industrie.
Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of time and respect for my colleague. I know the Oshawa community is going through hardship right now because of the fact that GM cut the third shift. But she should talk to her colleague as well from the Oshawa region that went to Washington and forgot to advocate for the auto workers back in his riding. First point. Second point, Mr. Speaker, we need to work as one team Canada because now the unions in the U.S. are now in favor of our position, which is no tariffs on auto workers. We need to work and put pressure on the D3, including GM. And I was in conversation with GM this week, and we will make sure that we create jobs.
The honourable member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, it would be awfully nice if this Liberal government would go to Washington and fight for Canadian auto workers. We cannot control what Donald Trump does, but we do know what we can control, and that's our policies here at home. And the Minister of Industry and the Prime Minister can certainly control their constant flip-flopping. Conservatives have a plan. Scrap rebates for foreign-made EVs and remove the HST on Canadian-made vehicles to spur investment and protect jobs here at home. Will they finally adopt our proposals and join Conservatives in supporting the resilient auto workers in Oshawa and across Canada?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister has set out the numerous ways in which we have expressed confidence and support and the complete backing of our auto workers and of our auto sector in Canada. Those are the things we can control, Mr. Speaker. Here's one thing that member can control. Tell her colleague to stop going to Washington and accuse Canadians of putting up a hissy fit in response to unfair, unjust, costly tariffs on our citizens, on our auto sector, and on our workers in Canada. That member should go over a few seats and say, stop the hissy fit talk.
The honourable member for Niagara South. The honourable member for Niagara South.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's auto exports fell to their lowest level in years this January. More than 5,000 auto workers have already lost their jobs. In Niagara alone, I have 2 EV plants that have neither opened or been delayed because of a declining EV market. Yet the Liberals are subsidizing foreign-made electric vehicles. It makes no sense at all. Will the Liberals finally adopt our strategy to protect Canadian workers in the auto sector, or will they continue to push ahead with their disastrous plan to subsidize foreign-made electric vehicles?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, they talk about the auto sector. What about the workers? What about a vision for this country? What about a plan? We have exactly that. They say they stand for working people. We have an opportunity now to rally around those working people with a serious approach to governance, to policy. It's exactly what we're doing every single day. They quote unions in this House. We have unions back. We have their families back. We will not stop until this country's on the right footing. We're going to get that work done.
Member for Swift Current Grasslands Kindersley.
Speaker, last year the RCMP seized 8 kilograms of fentanyl near Swift Current. This dangerous drug was caught moving through my community. And while the police did a great job catching criminals behind the opioid crisis, their heroic efforts have been undermined by Liberal catch and release. 1 year later, federal Crown prosecutors said they are staying charges against 2 traffickers because they're following their federal policy playbook. So my question is this: what federal policy could possibly justify this decision?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, let me just say today we introduced Bill C-22, an incredibly important tool that law enforcement from across Canada have been asking for. It will enable law enforcement to address issues such as extortion, intimidation, harassment, Mr. Speaker, also to ensure that those who are exploited by childhood sexual exploitation are given the necessary sentencing that's required. Lawful access will give law enforcement the tools that they've been asking for.
The Honourable Member for Swift Current Grasslands Kindersley.
Well, it's obvious that the minister wasn't paying attention to the question that I just asked, because fentanyl is a dangerous and lethal drug. 8 kilograms is potentially millions of doses. Millions of doses means that Canadians will be murdered by this drug and their dealers. What happened in Swift Current is one example among too many of the radical, less pathetic views on crime. Families are being torn apart, loved ones are being lost, those criminals should be behind bars. If the Liberals were serious, they would adopt our plan to give life sentences to people trafficking enough fentanyl to kill thousands of Canadians. Why won't they do it?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's new government has taken very important measures to ensure the safety and security of Canadians. We have Bill C-14, Mr. Speaker, which addresses the issues around bail as well as sentencing, the issues that the member opposite is talking about. It also have Bill C-16, which is about supporting victims and ensuring the administration of justice. Just today, Mr. Speaker, I had the opportunity to introduce Bill C-22, for lawful access, an important tool that all law enforcement have been asking for. What I'm going to ask is of the members opposite, will they support this? Will they pass this bill today?
L'honorable député de Montmorency.
The Honourable Member for Montmorency, Charlevoix. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thanks to the Québécois Investigations Bureau, we've learned that 239 visas linked to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard have been revoked, but only one person has been removed from Canada. Only one. This is a terrorist group on Canadian soil. Also, we have learned that a Canadian armed forces camp at a Kuwait military base was struck by Iranian missiles. Luckily, no one was injured. But it's pretty clear that the Iranian regime is not our friend. The Liberal government is keeping these criminals here, saying they have rights, and they've made asylum requests. Will the government remove them, yes or no?
Mr. Speaker, the IRGC was listed as a terrorist entity under the Criminal Code in Canada in 2024. The state of Iran has been listed as a state sponsor of terrorism. We have been working to ensure that those who are inadmissible are removed forthwith. Any information that's received by law enforcement, by CBSA, of alleged members of the IRGC who are in Canada are investigated thoroughly. The issues that the opposite member is referencing have been addressed, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Montmorency, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, when there's a crime, Liberals tell us that they care about victims. When we ask them to get rid of members of a terrorist organization, they tell us that these people have rights. Listen, Iranian women who are protesting the regime are telling us that they're being photographed by members of the regime. They don't feel safe here in Canada. This week, a critic of the Iranian regime disappeared, and now there's a murder investigation. What will it take for the government to finally deport these 238 members of a recognized terrorist group who are living the good life in Canada at taxpayers' expense?
Public safety.
Mr. Speaker, to be clear, the number that the member opposite is referencing, they were never allowed into Canada. Those visas were revoked as they were outside of Canada, Mr. Speaker. But let me just say, for the record, that individuals who are believed to be members of the IRGC are being thoroughly investigated by the Canada Border Service agencies. They're going through the legal process of being removed. Some have already been removed, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to ensure that every single member who is inadmissible to Canada, who are members of the IRGC, are removed.
The Honourable Member from Madawaska-Restigouche. Mr. Speaker, cancer affects almost all families in Canada. I lost my wife, Stéphanie, at 34 years of age because of cancer. She believed in the importance of research in order to allow us to save lives. In Canada, we estimate that around 4 out of 10 cases of cancer could be avoided if we had better prevention and risk reduction measures. Can the minister tell us about the investments that we're making in order to advance cutting-edge research against cancer?
L'honorable ministre de la Santé.
The Honourable Minister of Health. I'd like to thank the member for Madawaska-Restigouche for sharing this personal story with us. And it is for people like Stéphanie that our government is investing more than $40 million into cutting-edge research in the area of cancer prevention. These investments will enable us to reduce the burden of cancer and save lives. By supporting these projects, we are moving science forward, we are improving prevention, and we are coming closer to a future where we will have more effective cancer treatment. Thank you.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals handed out a $200 million below market value loan to a company to build a wind farm in Nova Scotia. It turns out that the chair of the company is the former leader of the Nova Scotia Liberal Party, and 3 of the directors are close family members of former Liberal MPs. So given that, are we to believe that it is just a coincidence that this cabal of Liberal insiders received this $200 million sweetheart loan?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I know the member opposite likes to think about cabals and conspiracies. Maybe he should talk to the Conservative Premier of Nova Scotia, who stood beside us and said this was one of the best projects he's ever seen, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, we're talking about a $200 million sweetheart loan to Liberal insiders. Canadians deserve to know that their tax dollars are not being handed out on the basis of political connections to this government. So, if in fact everything is above board, the Liberals should have no trouble releasing all of the documents and all of the terms of the loan. Will they?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what this is a large megawatt wind farm that's producing thousands of jobs in Ontario, in Nova Scotia, giving the opportunity of people from Nova Scotia to buy renewable power. This is good for Nova Scotia. That's why the Premier of Nova Scotia stood beside it and said it was a great project, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lobinière. Scandal after scandal, Mr. Speaker. Things are looking pretty great for Liberal wind farms. This week, we learned that the Liberals gave a $205 million loan at below market rates, as well as $150 million in subsidies for a Liberal wind farm in Nova Scotia. And to be a member of the board, you need to be a former Liberal member or a member of the Liberal family. Without exception. Mr. Speaker, why does the Liberal family get these subsidies and sweetheart deals? All of this paid for by Canadians.
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, 3 times with gusto, I guess. It doesn't change the answer. It doesn't change the answer. There's no conspiracy here. The Conservative Premier of Nova Scotia said this was one of the best projects he's ever seen. This is good for the people of Nova Scotia, and it's good for the people of Canada, Mr. Speaker.
Daryl Sampson says thank you.
Well, I have the Honourable Member for Sudbury.
Mr. Speaker, over 1/3 of Canadians are hit with NSF, non-sufficient fund fees, and those fees can be as high as $50. That's money Canadians can be using to pay towards rent, food, and other essential items. Can the Minister of Finance tell this House how we are helping Canadians with affordability by capping NSF fees and lowering banking costs?
L'Honorable Ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for a great question, and I know that everyone wants to hear more good news, Mr. Speaker. It's Thursday. In fact, yesterday, she is right, we have announced that we're capping
the non-sufficient funds, Mr. Speaker, to $10. $10, Mr. Speaker. We know that one out of 3 Canadians is affected by these fees. It's going to save $600 million for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue our quest to make life more affordable, to help Canadians, and to build a strong country, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Later today, Vancouver Islanders will gather at the British Columbia Afghanistan War Memorial in Victoria to mark the 12th anniversary of the end of Canada's mission in Afghanistan and remember the 165 lives of Canadians who were lost there. Canada's mission in Afghanistan was the longest military campaign in our country's history, where more than 40,000 Canadians served. We remember the courage, sacrifice, and service of those who answered the call. Mr. Speaker, it saddens me to ask, however, why has this Liberal government failed to build the dedicated Afghanistan War Memorial here in Ottawa that was announced 12 years ago? Shameful.
The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we thank all Canadian Forces members and their families for their service to Canada, and we acknowledge the incredible contributions that Canadians made in Afghanistan, including the 158 who made the ultimate sacrifice. Acknowledgement of Canada's serving members is incredibly important, and we continue to move forward with that. I look forward to sharing more with my member opposite in due course.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, Israel and the United States are attacking Iran on false pretenses of the nuclear program, and now the whole region is in a crisis. Meanwhile, Netanyahu is taking advantage of this to once again bomb Lebanon. Hundreds of civilians have been killed, thousands wounded, and nearly 800,000 people are displaced and fleeing. France has taken a clear position to defend Lebanon, its people, and sovereignty. And what's the Liberal reaction here? Nothing. Total silence. It's disturbing. When will this government have the courage to say enough is enough and defend Lebanon?
L'honorable ministre des Affaires.
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I don't know if my colleague heard today's announcement, but our government has announced support for Lebanon. Specifically, $37.7 million. Humanitarian assistance for people in Lebanon, for people who are suffering due to the current situation in the country. We will continue to be there to offer humanitarian assistance, and we will continue to ensure.
The Honourable Member for Courtenay-Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, because the Liberal Fisheries Minister has failed to explain the Pacific Salmon Allocation Policy Review, misinformation is spreading across the West Coast. Recreational fishing is essential to many Vancouver Island communities, which are uncertain about their future, and that confusion is fueling division and racism. This review was directed by the courts to update an outdated policy with conservation first, recognition of constitutionally protected Indigenous fishing rights, and fairness for everyone on the water. Explaining what this review actually means is the minister's job. When will she show leadership and set the record straight?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as the member knows, it was an extensive review. The policy was established in 1999. Due course, obviously, we need to look at this. There was 6 years when the terms were reviewed. A full year of consultation, which closed the middle of January. We are now reviewing the work, and when we're ready, I am pleased to bring our findings forward.
And that's it for question period today. We'll give it a moment, and then I know that the opposition House Leader is interested in asking a question of the government House Leader. Raucous today.
It's almost ready.
Okay, the Honourable Opposition House Leader has a question for the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and it is time for the Thursday question, the day on which all of CPAC's servers experience a massive spike. So we hope that their IT department is well prepped for what's about to happen. I wonder if the Government House Leader could update the House as to the business for the Chamber for the rest of this week and the week after our constituency work week. Especially curious to hear if he's actually going to be tabling any kind of action plan to not just ban new IRGC agents from entering the country, but to actually deport the ones that are in this country and causing so much harm to Canadian citizens and security, and of course funding a terrible regime in Iran. Or if you could update the House as to whether or not they are going to repeal any of the hidden taxes that add to the cost of grocery prices, like the industrial carbon tax or the fuel standards tax, which adds 7 cents a litre, rising to 17